Right now, a lot of people are getting completely fed up with how expensive housing is, and it's why you're seeing so many people just give up on buying a house. And this is turning out to be one of the worst home selling seasons in 2024 that we have seen over the past 30 years. And today, I got my bodyguard with me again. Dad, what's up, Pops?
Hey, how you doing?
He's gonna be with me all week probably because he's liking this YouTube stuff. So we're going to talk about real estate and how unaffordable it is, but also how actually affordable it is around here. And believe it or not, guys, here in Rockford, Illinois, where I'm at right now, is supposedly one of the hottest housing markets throughout the entire country right now in terms of how much prices have been going up year over year. But the thing is, prices are still very low here. The median home price here in Rockford, Illinois is still only $192,000, whereas nationwide, it's 400 grand. So it's no wonder that prices are continuing to go up and inventory is low. In fact, in this neighborhood I'm walking in right now, I think there's only 2 houses for sale. That's it. And I only saw one of them on Redfin. The other one I just happened to see when I was driving by, and they're kind of like right next to each other. So I'll put them up later in the video. But anyways, right now you have more homeowners that are putting their houses on the market in order to try to take advantage of the high prices still. But at the same time, they're all overestimating how much people are willing to pay for these houses. This is all data according to Redfin, and the number of listings with price drops rose to 6.5% of all listings in the week of June 9th, and that's the most that we've seen since 2022. And 2022 was a very hot year for real estate, and it's surprising that now the numbers are starting to surpass that with the price cuts. You're also seeing a lot of people giving up on selling the houses, because if people put the house on the market and they don't get the price that they want, a lot of times what they're doing now is they're just pulling the listing. They're not actually selling the house. They're just saying, well, maybe we'll try again in a few months, or we'll try again next year, or whatever. But the problem is the housing market has already taken its turn for the worse, and so trying again in 6 months or a year probably isn't going to net them anything positive. In fact, the price will probably be lower than, not higher. As of the end of May, it's estimated that about 9% of all the listings that were on the market were taken off the market without selling. That's double the usual rate since 2017. So what that tells you is the expectations that sellers have set for their listings are completely out of whack with what buyers are actually willing to pay. And so at some point, that's going to have to meet an equilibrium. At some point, you're going to have people come together and say, all right, this is the real price of the house if you want to get it sold. What you're seeing is a lot of home buyers are just boycotting this housing market. Just like a lot of people have been giving up on going to these fast food restaurants because it's too expensive, they're just not showing up to buy the house anymore. 1, because it's too unaffordable, and 2, even if you can afford it, a lot of people are now starting to realize, hey, wait a minute, inventory is picking up, at least in a lot of places it is, and prices have been coming down in some areas, and maybe it's better to wait a little bit. So here we have 2 houses in a row, the only 2 houses in the entire neighborhood that are for sale. This first one doesn't have a listing price yet because they probably just listed it, but there is a sign in the yard, and it last sold in 2017 for $174, and prior to that in 2002 it sold for only $143,000. So there's a couple interesting things there. The first thing is the appreciation really didn't go up all that much in the span of 15 years. I mean, the price of this house barely went up 30 grand in 15 years, and now they're probably going to be trying to really squeeze some extra profit out of it. But even for a house this cheap that only sold for $174,000 in 2017, you still have a property tax bill of almost 6 grand a year, which in Florida you would have to buy a house that's probably $450,000 to have a property tax bill that high, which also shows you just how high property taxes are here in Illinois. So the house right next door is listed for $299,000, basically $300K, and the listing's only a few days old, and with the way the housing market is here in Rockford, it'll probably sell pretty quick. But check out this. Back in 1988, this person paid $260,000 for this house. Today, they're lucky if they're going to get $300,000, guys. We're talking $40,000 in appreciation over the span of 36 years. This house is almost as old as I am, and they're not going to make a profit, because think about this. After 36 years of maintaining this house and all the property taxes they paid and everything they sunk into this house, do you think a $40,000 profit is really going to cut it? Absolutely not. So that just goes to show you that this whole myth of homeownership always paying off and it's always better to buy is actually not true. And even in an overheated housing market like Rockford, these guys are still not going to walk away with a profit. Really, the only good thing here, and it's something you rarely see, is that their property tax bill has actually been going down since 2015. And back then it was like $4,300 a year. Now they're down to $3,300 a year. People say your property taxes never go down. Well, in this case, it actually did, which is even more curious because this is a time when home prices have been appreciating ever since that time span. So you would think the property taxes would have gone up, but instead they went down. But at least this person is catching somewhat of a break. So what you're starting to see right now is you're starting to see the beginning of a price correction in this country. Now, places like this are probably the exception right now because it's still so affordable. But like for you, for example, Dad, like you deliver the mail to a lot of neighborhoods. Like, what do you see around here when it comes to, you know, people buying houses and paying rent? Like, what are you seeing around here?
High.
High.
To us, it's high.
It's high. Even though it's affordable nationwide, it's becoming way too expensive here, right?
Yes. For the economy that we have, yeah. A lot of people are leaving, selling their houses. A lot of the elderly that are on like fixed incomes are going into more of a senior living,
right,
than having a house because of the repairs and the taxes. So they're trying to make ends meet some way or another.
And you were just saying a minute ago that the house next to Sarah, which is my sister, his daughter, just sold for how much?
$225,000.
And that's like a lot around here.
Yes.
That's not a cheap house. I mean, what do you think that house would have cost maybe before the pandemic?
Oh, probably 100 and a quarter.
That's it?
Yep.
Wow. So the price of that house has essentially doubled in the span of like 4 years. But around here, it can make it look like the housing market is still very hot, because when you have so few listings for sale, it makes it look like every single time one gets listed, it just flies off the market because there's nothing else for people to choose from. So when you do have that small amount of people in the area that can afford to buy and want to buy, they're all after the same house. So it's going to be interesting to see if anybody's going to start addressing this affordable housing issue, because a recent poll shows that 74% of U.S. adults are considering the lack of affordable homes a significant problem in this country. And this is a bipartisan issue, so it's not like it's just, you know, one side of the aisle is saying this. Everybody knows this is a problem, and the issue is all the governments ever want to do is throw money at the problem, which just ends up making housing more expensive. In fact, that's how we got into this situation where housing is so expensive today. It's all their fault for allowing trillions to be printed within a span of a couple of years. And now even till this day, you're still seeing a lot of people receive subsidies for housing. You still see people get home buyer grants, like in Florida. We have the Hometown Heroes grant. People get $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for free to go ahead and buy a house. You know, and now we're seeing the return of the 0% down mortgages, things like that, that help people get into a house with basically no money down. You know, so many people are putting their stock in the fact that, well, if mortgage rates just come down, you know, one more percentage point, then that's going to reignite the fire in the housing market. Like, if interest rates, for example, Dad, went back down to like 3% where they were during the pandemic, which probably isn't going to happen, but if it did, would that be enough to get you to go out there and buy a house?
Yeah, if it was what I was looking for.
But what about the price? Because the prices, like you said, are now basically double around here. You know, the interest rate being lower would make the house more affordable, but you're still going to pay a high price for the house.
Yeah, you're going to pay more for the house, but then again, you cut out your interest. So, I mean, you get the double-edged sword, you know. Do you want to keep paying rent, or do you want to pay for something that you're going to own?
I understand why people do that, but only if it's close. You know, for me, if it's like, if the rent is $2,000 a month, but to own the house is, you know, $2,300 a month, some people might say, well, I might as well just pay the extra $300 to buy the house. But then again, that's not as far as it goes. That's just with your payment. You still have other expenses like maintaining a nice yard like this, any sort of problems that go wrong with the house, it's all on you. And those are like phantom costs that homeowners have that renters don't. So
right, but then again, you got to look at what the people's situation is. Do they have a family? Do they have kids? Do they need bigger area? You can't have 5 kids and have a 3-bedroom place, the rent. So if your rent keeps going up by how much square foot you have and how many bedrooms, bathrooms, then it'd be easier and better for them to actually buy than to rent.
Yeah, one of the things that I talk about here on the channel is I think it's kind of stupid or foolish when people buy a house just because they have a kid. Because when you have a kid, doesn't necessarily mean you need to buy a house. It just means you have to put a roof over your kid's head. So it's not like a requirement that you have to do it. I think a lot of people do it more out of social norms than out of necessity. You know, that's my opinion.
Well, yes, okay, your opinion is good, but then again, you know, I don't know what the laws are in other cities, but like here in Illinois, you know, you can't have a son and a daughter sharing a room. You have to have.
Oh, really?
Right. You have to have a room for that. Just like when I got divorced from your mom, I had to have a room for Sarah. I couldn't just give her my room and sleep on the couch.
Right.
I had to have her having her own living space.
Well, right now the data is basically speaking for itself, because the home sales in May fell to the lowest levels that we have seen in the past decade. This is also according to Redfin. And at the same time, we're starting to see the supply of real estate come up slightly on a national scale. It's not quite at pre-pandemic levels yet, but we're getting there. We're at about 750,000 homes for sale. Once we get to around 1.2 million for sale, then we'll be at pre-pandemic levels. So the reason why this is important is because this is supposed to be the busy time of year with real estate, okay? This is when you're supposed to see home sales going through the roof. You know, usually anywhere between March, April, May, and June, and even July, are like the busy months, the biggest home selling season, right? That's when you see the most transactions take place. But yet we're seeing right now that home sales in May fell 1.7% month over month and dropped 2.9% from a year ago. So this is not really a sign that the housing market is strong right now. What I get from this is that housing is just too expensive, and you can't buy if you can't afford it. I mean, we've talked about this 1,000 times here on the channel, but now it's showing up in the data, because if people aren't buying and these houses are coming on the market and they're not selling and sellers are pulling the listing because they're not getting the price that they want, what does that tell you? It tells you that it's too expensive and the only way these houses are going to get sold is if prices and or interest rates come down significantly, which neither one has really happened so far. So there's other reasons also that people are boycotting the housing market right now, and it's not just because the prices and rates are too high, it's also because just the regular cost to maintain a home is also too expensive right now. One of my viewers just sent me this real world example of this house that's been sitting on the market here in the Midwest for over 200 days. He wants to make a lowball offer on the property, and he found out that the insurance on the house has gone up 80% just between February of 2024 and June of 2024. The good thing is he got a quote on the house back then when he was first looking at it and decided to requote the property now to see how much it's gone up. And I'm so glad that he shared this with me, because this is something that I talk about a lot here on the channel as something that should be part of your due diligence period when buying a house. You should be looking at how much is your insurance going to be when you're making an offer or during your due diligence period before you're locked in and can no longer back out of the contract, because you might be surprised that when you get to the closing, because that's kind of one of the last things people normally look at, that this is too expensive and you can't afford it, because the insurance right now is going up in so many different areas across the country. Everyone's getting hit with an increase. It's just kind of a matter of how much right now. So when we look at this quote, you can see that back in February of 2024, the total annual premium for this house would be $3,172. And you guys can look at the details of what it covers and all of that. But fast forward to today, in June of 2024, insurance for that same house is now $5,678. So it has gone up almost double in the span of less than 6 months. And how many people wait until they get to the closing table or right before the closing and figure this out, and now they realize that their mortgage payment is going to be, because it shows it monthly, guys. We're looking at $264 a month versus $473 a month. So your mortgage payment just went up $210 a month in the span of a few months when you're looking at buying this house. And how does that affect the value of the house? I mean, if you were looking at something like this, Dad, would that maybe influence your decision to buy the house?
Oh yeah, that would definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
I mean, you're getting to the closing and realizing that the insurance is going to be far more expensive than you thought. I would say one of two things has to happen. You either renegotiate the price to bring your payment down to an affordable level, or you don't buy the house.
Yes.
Right? I mean, what other options are there? You have to have insurance if you're getting a mortgage on the house.
Right.
So there's no, well, maybe I just won't have insurance unless you're paying cash. But Illinois in general is an interesting case study when it comes to real estate and prices and what's going on, because it's definitely still going up. There's no denying that. And also, another interesting thing about real estate here in Illinois is that even though prices are still continuing to go up, the population of the state has been in decline for over a decade now. If you take a look at this chart, it shows you back in 2009, you could see there's about 12.9 million people here. And now there's only about 12.5 million. In the span of a decade or so, they've lost over 400,000 residents here in Illinois, and that seems like it's continuing to decline. Yet at the same time, home prices here are going up, which is kind of unusual. But right now, the median home value here in the state of Illinois is only $265,000. So once again, it is still very affordable compared to most other states. You can see that the year-over-year growth here is up 7.3% right now, which is still a phenomenal gain. And so this is why you see people that say, well, I don't see prices coming down in my area. I don't see inventory building in my area, because it's all regional, guys. And where I'm at right now is the poster child for prices continuing to go up. Even here in Rockford, Illinois, where we are right now, it kind of follows the same trend line as Illinois. You can see the population has been on steady decline over the past 15 years or so. And you can also see that the mortgage payments as a percentage of income are right around 27%. So that's still actually deemed affordable when you're looking at incomes versus what the houses are, which is another reason why the prices here continue to go up. Like, that is actually the recipe for prices going up, when you have people that can still afford the houses that come up for sale, combined with the fact that there's very low inventory here. That's a recipe for prices going up. And you guys can see by looking at this chart that we are way below what inventory should be here in Rockford. Back in 2017, there was almost 1,200 houses on the market. Like I said, we walked through this neighborhood, there's only 2 houses for sale here. And throughout the entire city, there's only about 200 houses for sale. So that's not very many houses for how many people live here and how many people are looking to get into a house. So that pushes prices up. Do you know anybody that has recently bought a house, Dad?
No, not bought a house, but a lot of our houses are being bought up by conglomerates, companies out of Chicago and other areas that are buying up a lot of our houses, paying cash.
Well, last night when we were talking to one of the neighbors, he was saying the state has been subsidizing a lot of the housing in this area, and they're actually buying up a lot of these houses too and turning them into Section 8 rentals and just giving away the housing for free.
Yes.
I mean, you deliver the mail around here. I'm sure you've seen people like that, right?
Oh, all day.
Yeah.
Actually, they're using our money as taxpayers to buy them houses.
Right, exactly. That's something I want to talk to you about more in the next video, because Illinois is going to be raising their taxes again, once again. and everybody around here is going to be paying more taxes, so that way people like that can have a free place to live. So make sure you guys don't miss that next video with Dad, because we are going to talk about some of the problems they're having here in Illinois with all that, and the prices continuing to go up and the taxes continuing to go up and the average person getting screwed, which is kind of the norm these days. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.